I'm Steve Jackson.
And I'm Steve Jackson.
Welcome to Dead Decks.
Mm-hmm.
Dead Decks.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, buddy. Yeah.
Or whatever.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Today we're doing a video clarifying Steve Jackson versus Steve Jackson.
Yeah.
Because not all Steve Jacksons are the same Steve Jackson. But some Steve Jacksons are Steve Jackson. But not every Steve Jackson is a Steve Jackson.
Obviously.
Yeah. Some come from other parts of the world. In this case, is a British Steve Jackson, and then there's an American Steve Jackson.
And probably some other motherfuckers too.
We're not talking about those Steve Jacksons. We're only talking about Steve Jacksons who do cardboard stuff.
Oh, yeah, those guys.
Yeah, cardboard Steve Jacksons.
Not every Harry is Harry, and not every Richard's a Richard.
No, but every Steve Jackson is a Steve Jackson. But not all Steve Jacksons are Steve Jacksons. I know it's kind of hard to keep all this straight. But just keep in mind that every Steve Jackson is not a Steve Jackson, except when they are Steve Jackson. So, it's brought to our attention that Steve Jackson is not Steve Jackson. So
Yeah, so we thought we'd have to clear that up.
yeah, talking about Steve Jackson not being Steve Jackson while also being Steve Jackson.
This made me accidentally fillet my baseball bat.
Accidentally.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm Steve Jackson today, so it's okay.
Yeah. As long as you're Steve Jackson talking about Steve Jackson doing Steve Jackson things, then it's a very Steve Jackson thing to do, which is, right up to Steve Jackson alley.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve Jackson, the battle card Steve Jackson, he's a British Steve Jackson. He did battle cards and a couple other things, including what?
Fighting fantasy.
Yeah.
He wrote books. Fighting fantasy books are cool. And it was one of my obsessions for, day and a half.
Day and a half.
Way most of my obsessions around.
And also Steve Jackson, American Steve Jackson, also helped write the same
Yeah.
fighting fantasy books.
He wrote a few and you said what? They're non-credited.
Yeah.
Or they are credited.
They're credited to
Just
Steve Jackson.
Yeah.
So if you're
Doesn't
Steve
clarify.
Jackson writing fighting fantasy and you're doing it with Steve Jackson, you're still Steve Jackson talking about fighting fantasy with Steve Jackson.
Yeah.
All things point back to Steve Jackson. If you haven't got to that point yet, you will.
This baseball bat. Yeah, fighting fantasy. If you don't know, Steve Jackson.
Yeah.
It's like an RPG book. Choose your own adventure, but create a character and keep it and try to survive. And you actually have skills, and it's very RPG-ish. You have inventory and you complete quests and pretty fucking cool shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, Steve Jackson.
Steve Jackson. Phones are buzzing.
Somebody's
That's okay.
vibrating. It's probably Steve.
It's probably Steve Jackson. Yep.
So the British one.
He also did some video game stuff too. I think it was a lot related to the other stuff he had done in the book world. He wrote books, and as far as I can tell, the only card game he created was the battle cards. He did have something called Fist, which was
That's what that is.
What's it say?
Fantasy what the fuck does it say?
Enter scenario by telephone.
Fantasy
Interconnected
Yeah.
scenarios.
I'm not sure.
He abbreviated it, but we don't remember the fucking
Abbreviated
word.
a word that's not meant to be abbreviated. International? Nah, I don't fucking know.
I think it's interconnected, but who the fuck cares? It's fantasy. It's basically the follow along read book thing through a phone. So you call a number and you did the whole fantasy shit over the phone.
Yeah, for $4.99 a minute, you can play a very unsatisfying RPG.
Yeah, by yourself.
Or you could just actually fist. Would be more fun.
It's video games too. Last Eden, Sorcery, which was also a book series.
One of his books, yeah. Also the game book.
Yeah, so that's Steve Jackson. If you didn't know about Steve Jackson, in the British sense of Steve Jackson, the American version of Steve Jackson is completely different. They did completely different things, except they wrote that same fucking book together, and we're both credited with writing the same book, but nobody knew which one wrote which.
Just one time. It's credited with one fucking name.
Yeah.
That they shared.
So Steve Jackson, American Steve Jackson, he did famously Illuminati. That was his first big game, which is one of those that are very expensive and hard to come by in the dead card game world, even loose stuff. It's aged very well too, I do believe, as far as content.
Yeah. You could make a case for that.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
He also did. You okay?
Yeah, bug flew mine.
Oh. Most famously, more recently, Munchkin was his creation, and they made fucking everything out of that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. They even did that shit to China. It's like, just print whatever.
Yeah,
Put
make it
Munchkin
all.
on it and just send it back. I don't even care what it is.
Munchkin butt plugs. Fill them
Yep.
in.
I'm sure they're out there. Well, maybe repurposed, but still. I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah, they're in there. One or the other.
We're in there. You don't want to see them once they're out there. Oh. Anyway, he also did Zombie Dice and Ogre and several other projects. He's been involved in a lot of things. But Steve Jackson, this is American Steve Jackson. He's not the same Steve Jackson as the British Steve Jackson. There's two different Steve Jacksons. Yep. That's the point of the video.
There's Steve Jackson. Two of them.
Two Steve Jacksons. Yeah.
The other one's probably inconsequential. We don't give a fuck.
Yeah, we don't care about them.
Fuck all them other Steve Jacksons.
I even know Steve Jackson. I fucking hate his guts.
I like the Steve Jackson. I know.
Yeah, nah, he's a tool.
It's a dick.
Yeah.
You made him. Hello. Shit. You didn't mention GURPS, did you?
No.
That's worth mentioning. That's the American Steve Jackson.
Not British Steve Jackson.
Because that's a very common RPG system I've seen reused for everything. So, as far as I know, he developed that. GURPS is his thing. GURPS. But not the other Steve Jackson. This Steve Jackson.
No, yeah. Now don't get confused. It's Steve Jackson, but keep that in mind. It's just Steve Jackson. It's not Steve Jackson. It's Steve Jackson. So
right. I suck at gags. I always fuck these up.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing you suck. Get that fucking thing in your mouth and shut
up. Here's to Steve Jackson. Well, what the fuck else we have to say about this stupid shit?
I don't know. I'm Steve Jackson.
And I'm Steve Jackson, too.
We're all Steve Jacksons.
So how'd we do, Steve?
Good enough, Steve.
Oh, yeah, buddy.